Speaking about anatomical planes, at the beginning looks like a very complex and very difficult task one has to accomplish. But in essence, three anatomical planes are creating three-dimensional grid, just like the world that we live in, where three planes practically represent three dimensions of the world that we're facing on a day-to-day basis. One of them would be equivalent for our perception of length, the other one for our perception of width, and the third one is going to relate to our own perception of height. Let's take a look at one of the images and let's find out exactly what we need to know about this. Give me a moment so that I can start the slideshow and we are to take a look at this together. As you know, there are three major anatomical planes. First one that we need to mention is called the mid-sagittal plane. Later, people call it just the sagittal plane. But in essence, we are seeing it as a plane which is running through the mid part of the body, dividing head, going through the nose, through the chin, at the middle of the neck, through the middle of the chest, as well as through the middle of the abdomen, until it splits the body into what we say nearly two identical halves. Internal arrangement of organs would prevent us from seeing body being made of two identical halves. However, they do exhibit quite significant symmetry, at least from the surface. So for us, the mid-sagittal plane becomes the first one that we relate. Second plane we need to introduce is known as the frontal plane. Frontal plane obviously runs side to side, and frontal plane is used to divide the body into its anterior and posterior parts. The mid-sagittal plane, at least the way we see it right now, has successfully split the body into left and right parts, or we can say for a moment left and right halves. The third major anatomical plane is the transverse plane. We also call it the horizontal plane. Horizontal plane runs at a 90 degrees angle intersecting frontal and also intersecting the mid-sagittal plane. It obviously divides the body into upper and lower parts. Just like a frontal plane, the transverse plane also could be freely moved a little bit more superiorly or a bit more inferiorly, or frontal plane being moved further forward or a little bit more to the back. But the mid-sagittal plane, in order to keep cutting the body into two approximate halves, stays stationary and cannot be moved from its position. In order to help us out a little more, we can introduce the plane which runs parallel to the mid-sagittal plane. Its name is the parasagittal plane, and it shows flexibility as it could be moved away from the midline or closer to it, depending which part of the body we observe and what is the current need for application of either of the anatomical planes. The oblique plane is the last one we have on this slide, quite infrequent use in anatomy, as the oblique plane is actually a plane that slopes. Other four planes previously mentioned, they really have to abide by a certain rule, intersecting each other by 90 degrees angle, with the exception, of course, of a parasagittal plane that runs parallel to mid-sagittal plane. Oblique plane, or plane that slopes, doesn't have to respect any particular angle. Neither direction of its slope is something that is predetermined. It could be sloping in a downward, forward direction. It could be sloping in a direction side to side, whether it is towards the inside or towards the outside of part of the body that we observe.